Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Chapter 3. I'm the most horrific liar you ever saw in your life. It's awful. I'm on my way to the store to buy a magazine and somebody asks me where I'm going. I'm liable to say I'm going to the opera. It's terrible. So when I told Spencer I had to go to the gym to get my equipment and stuff, that was a sheer lie. I don't even keep my goddamn equipment in the gym. Where I lived at Penn C, I live in Awesome Burger Memorial Wing of the new dorms. It was only for juniors and seniors. I was a junior. My roommate was a senior. It was named after this guy in Awesome Burger that went to Penn C. He made a pot of dough in the undertaking business after he got out of Penn C. What he did, he started these undertaking parlors all over the country that you could get member of your family buried for about $5 a piece. You should see the old Awesome Burger. He probably just shoves them in a sack and dumps them in a river. Anyway, he gave Pensy a pile of dough, and they named our wing after him. The first football game of the year, he came to school in a big goddamn Cadillac. We all had to stand up in the grandstand and give him a locomotive. That's a cheer. Then the next morning in chapel, he made a speech that lasted about 10 hours. He started off with about 50 corny jokes just to show us what a regular guy he was. Very big deal. Then he started telling us how he was never ashamed when he was in some kind of trouble or something to get right down on his knees and pray to God. He told us we should always pray to God, talk to him, and all wherever we were. All he told us we ought to think of Jesus as our buddy and all. He said he talked to Jesus all the time, even when he was driving in his car. That killed me. I could just see the big phony bastard shifting into first gear and asking Jesus to send him a few more stiffs. The only good part of his speech was right in the middle of it. He was telling us all about what a swell guy he was, what a hot shot, and all. Then all of a sudden, this guy sitting in the row in front of me, Edgar Marisol, laid this terrific fart. It was very crude. It was a very crude thing to do in chapel and all, but it was also quite amusing. Old Marcella, he damn near blew off the roof. Hardly anybody laughed out loud, and the old Awesome Burger made it out like he didn't even hear it. But old Thermer, the headmaster, was sitting right next to him on the rostrum and all, and you could tell he heard it. Boy, he was sore. He didn't say anything, but the night he made us compulsory study hall in the academic building, he came up and made a speech. He said that the boy that created the disturbance in chapel wasn't fit to go to Penn C. We tried to get old Marcelia to rip off another one, right? While old Thermer was making his speech, but he wasn't in a right mood. Anyway, that's where I lived at Penn C, old Awesome Burger Memorial Wing in the new dorms. It was pretty nice to get back to my room after I left Old Spencer because everybody was down at the game and the heat was on in our room. For a change, it felt sort of cozy. I took off my coat, put on, took off my coat inside, unbuttoned my shirt collar, then I put on this hat that I bought in New York that morning. This was it was this red hunting hat with one of those very very long peaks. I saw it in the window of this sports store when we got out of the subway. I just noticed that I'd lost all the goddamn foils. It only cost me $1. The way I wore it, I swung the old peak way around the back. Very corny, I'll admit, but I liked that. I liked it that way. I looked good in that way. Then I got this book I was reading and sat down in a chair. There were 2 chairs in my room. And my roommate Ward Stradler had. The arms were in bad shape because everybody was always sitting on them, but they were pretty comfortable chairs. The book I was reading was this book I took out of the library. My mistake. They gave me the wrong book, and I didn't even notice till I got back to my room. They gave me Out of Africa by Isaac Descent. I thought it was going to stink, but it didn't. It was very good. It was a very good book. I'm quite illiterate, but I can read a lot. My favorite author is my brother DB, and my favorite is Ring Lardner. My brother gave me a book by Ring Lardner for my birthday, just before I went to Pensy. It had these very funny, crazy plays in it, and then it had this one story about a traffic cop that falls in love with this very cute girl that's always speeding. Only he married, only he's married the cop, so he can't marry her or anything. Then this girl gets killed because she's always speeding. This story just about killed me. What I like the best is a book that's at least funny once in a while. I read a lot of classical books like The Return of the Native and all of them, and I need to read a lot of war books, and I read a lot of war books and mysteries and all, but they don't knock me out too very much. What really knocks me out is a book that when you're all done reading it, you wish the author that wrote it was a terrific friend of yours, and you could call him up on the phone whenever you like it. That doesn't happen much, though I wouldn't mind calling this Isaac Dynson up and Ring Lardner, except that DB told me he's dead. You take that book of Human Bondage by Somerset Maugham. Though I read it last summer, it's a pretty good book and all, but I wouldn't want to call Somerset Maugham up. I don't know. He just isn't the kind of guy I'd want to call up. That's all. I'd rather call old Thomas Hardy up. I like that Euston CITR. Anyway, I put on my new hat and sat down and started reading that book out of Africa. I'd read it again already, but I wanted to read certain parts over again. I only read about 3 pages though when I heard somebody coming through the shower curtains. Even without looking up, I knew who the right guy. I knew right away who it was. It was Robert Ackley. This guy, that room right next to me, there were showers right between every 2 rooms in our wing. And about 85 times a day, old Ackley barged in on me. He was probably the only guy in the whole dorm besides me that wasn't down at the game. He hardly ever went anywhere. He was a very peculiar guy. Peculiar guy. He was a senior, and he'd been at Penty for the whole 4 years, and all, but nobody ever called him anything except for Ackley. Not even Herb Gale, his own roommate, ever called him Bob or even Ack. If he ever gets married, his own wife will probably call him Ackley. He was one of these very, very tall, round-shouldered guys. He was about 6'4" with the lousy teeth. The whole time he roomed next to me, I never even once saw him brush his teeth. They always looked mossy and awful, and he damn near made you sick if you saw him the if you saw him in the dining room with his mouth full of mashed potatoes and peas or something. Besides that, he had a lot of pimples, not just on his forehead or his chin like most guys, but all over his face. And not only that, he had a terrible personality. He was also a sort of nasty guy. I I wasn't too crazy about him, I'll tell you the truth. I could feel him standing on the shower ledge right behind my chair, taking a look, see if Stradler was around. He hated Stradler's guts, and he never came in the room if Stradler was around. He hated everybody's guts, damn near. He came down off the shower ledge and came in the room. Hi, he said. He always said it like he was the terrifically bored or terrifically tired. He didn't want you to think he was visiting you or anything. He wanted you to think he'd come by mistake or for God's sake. Hi, I said, but I didn't look up from my book with the guy. Exactly. If you looked up from your book, you were a goner. You were a goner anyway, but as but not as quick as if you didn't look up right away. He started walking around the room very slow and all the way he did, picking up every personal stuff off your desk and chiffonier. He always picked up your personal stuff and looked at it. Boy, he could get on your nerves sometimes. How was the fencing? He asked. He wanted me to quit reading and enjoying myself. He didn't give a damn about the fencing. We win or what? He said. Nobody won, I said, without looking up though. What? He said. He always made you say everything twice. Nobody won, I said. I sneaked around. I sneaked a look at what he was fiddling around with on my chiffonier. He was looking at this picture of this girl I used to go around in the New York Sally Hayes. He must have picked up that goddamn picture and looked at it at least 5,000 times since I got it. He always put it back in the wrong place too. When he was finished, he did it on purpose, you could tell. Nobody won. He said, how come? I left the goddamn foils and stuff on the subway. I still didn't look up at him. On the subway for the Christ's sake, Christ's sake, you lost him, you mean? We got the wrong, we got on the wrong subway. I had to keep getting up to look at the goddamn map on the wall. He came over and stood right in my light. Hey, I said, I read this in the same sentence about 20 times you came in, but anybody except Ackley would have taken the goddamn hint. Not him, though. I think I'll, they'll make him pay for him, he said. I don't know, and I don't give a damn. How about sitting down or something, Ackley kid? You're right, and my goddamn right. He didn't like it when you called him Ackley kid. He was always telling me I was a goddamn kid because I was 16 and he was 18. It drove him mad, and I called him Ackley kid. He kept standing there. He was exactly kind of a guy that wouldn't get out of your light when you asked him to. He'd do it finally, but when it took him a lot longer when if you asked him what the hell you're reading, he said, goddamn book. He shoved my book back with his hand so that he could see the name of it. Any good, he said. This I'm reading is terrific. I can't quite I can't be quite sarcastic when I'm in the mood, he said. I didn't get it though. He started walking around my room again, the room again, picking up all my personal stuff in straddlers. Finally, I put my book down on the floor. You couldn't read anything with the guy, like the Ackley around. It was impossible. I slid way down the hell in my chair. I watched old Ackley making himself at home. I was feeling sort of tired from the trip to New York, and I was yawning. Then I was horsing around a little bit sometimes. The Sometimes I horse around quite a lot just to keep from getting bored. What I did was I pulled the old peak of hunting hat around to the front, then pulled it away from over my eyes. That way I couldn't see a goddamn thing. I think I'm going blind, I said in this hoarse voice. Mother darling, everything is so getting so dark in here. You're nuts. I swear to God, Ackley said. Mother, darling, give me your hand. Why won't you give me your hand? For Christ's sake, grow up. I started groping around in front of me like a blind guy, but without getting up or anything. I kept saying, Mother, darling, why won't you give me your hand? I was only horsing around naturally. That stuff gives me bangs sometimes. Besides, I know it annoyed the hell out of old Ackley. He always brought out the old sadist in me. I was pretty sadistic with him quite often. Finally, I quit, though I pulled the peak around the back again and relaxed. Whose belongs are this? Ackley said that he was holding my roommate's knee supporter up to show me. That guy actually pick up anything. He'd even pick up your jock strap or something. I told him it was Stradler's. So he chuckled it on Stradler's bed. He got off. He got it off Stradler's chiffonier. So he chucked it on the bed. He came over and sat down on the arm of Stradler's chair. He never sat down in a chair, just always on the arm. Where the hell did you get that? He said. New York? How much, a buck? You got robbed. He started cleaning his goddamn fingernails with the end of the match. He was always cleaning his fingernails. It was funny in a way. His teeth were mossy dirty and his ears were dirty as hell, but he was always cleaning his fingernails. I guess he thought it made him a very neat guy. He took up another hat while he was cleaning the up over here. We wear a hat like that to shoot a deer. Like hell it is. I took it off, looked at it, I sort of closed one eye, and like I was taking aim at it. This is a people shooting hat. I said, I shoot people in this hat. Your folks know you'd get kicked out yet? Nope. Left on page 22 of The Catcher in the Rye.